Hello people, my name is Bella. If this is your first time here, this feels like it's extremely up close and personal. Meanwhile, I attempted to fill in my brows a little bit more today to avoid or to distract from the fact that on the under part of my eye is swollen, but I don't know if that's really working. I still see it. But yeah, I haven't sat down to make a talking video in maybe 2 or 3 weeks now, so I'm just trying to get my bearings. How do you feel about my hair, by the way? It's literally all back, and then with Zoe's hair this week, she was doing something along these lines, so I just told the person I was doing my hair to do the same thing. I've been really liking these easy breezy styles that just last for maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks at most, and then I can take them off because I hate the commitment. So friendship breakups, I'm going to read through some of the questions so that you guys have a general idea of what we're going to be talking about. Friendship breakups. Sona Events NG says friendship breakups. V-World says, how do you manage healthy long distance friendships? Pretty says, how do you deal with a friend that doesn't ever see her wrong, but only sees yours? How do you handle friendship breakups? I mean, someone you thought would be in your life forever. Closure or keep it moving? Ashley says, friendship breakups hurt more than relationship breakups, question mark, question mark. Kali says, is there really a difference between friendship breakups and that of relationships? Is it really worse than people claim? So those are all the questions that kind of have to do directly with friendship breakups. So before I go into this, I feel like it's important to know my background when it comes to friendships and relationships. I have had a lot of transitions in life. You'll see that I use transitions a lot in this video because I consider myself not a fixed person. I consider myself a fluid person, and it's something that I take a lot of pride in. I think most people should be fluid in life because it allows you the opportunity to experience different things. So I've had my own share. The first ever friendship breakup that I went through was almost entirely my fault. So it was a situation where we were in uni. It feels like a long time ago. It actually feels like a long time ago, and maybe it is kind of a long time ago. It's like 10 years by now, which is wild. We're in uni and I had this particular friend, and her name is Kenny. And Kenny and I, what I used to do at that point, from secondary school to uni, my personality was one that I would have like my close-knit friends, and then with my other friends I would kind of pitch. So I would go around, I'd be really tight with somebody for a long period of time, and then I would kind of separate myself when I feel like I've given all I can give, and then I'll move on to another person. So I didn't really see friendships for a long time as something that was destined to be fixed or long term. I saw it as a thing of like, almost like romantic relationships. You can still be friends with the person after, but then my goal in a lot of my relationships was to kind of have a positive effect on that person, and then go on and have another positive effect on another person. I found that it made me feel like I was taking my time to build relationships with people individually, but what I didn't understand at that point in time is that it would be such a traumatic experience when I separate myself from somebody. For them, it would almost be a thing of like, and it wasn't like I would stop talking to them, it's just that the amount of time I would spend naturally would reduce because I would be spending that amount of time with somebody else. So Kenny and I had one of such times. We had spent a lot of time together, and then at some point in time that amount of time started to dissipate. This one wasn't really because I was transitioning into a new friendship or like my usual thing. It was more based on lots of things I was going through at that point in time. If you've been on my channel for a while, or you've been on my old channels, you'll know that at some point in time I was actively and aggressively battling with anxiety and depression, and then I had to come back to Nigeria because my mother no longer thought it was safe for me to be out of Nigeria by myself. So that was around this period in time when things were starting to spiral. So she had stopped talking to me at a certain point, and I have a big ego. I have issues with pride that I'm still kind of getting through. I have issues with pride I'm still kind of getting through. So my thing was like, if you're angry with me, tell me you're angry with me. This is from somebody that's, even if I'm angry with other people, I didn't necessarily used to tell them that I was angry, but I expected that when people were angry with me, they would tell me that they were angry with me. It went on for a while. Our friend groups, like, she would actively like have not talked to me, but in a way that she wanted me to know. At that point in time, I felt like it was very childish. I felt it was very unnecessary. It almost turned into a competition for me. Like, if I can ignore the fact that you're ignoring me, if I knew now that it was literally just somebody trying to get my attention, obviously it would be a different scenario entirely. But eventually our friend sat us down and we had a conversation, and she aired her feelings, and they were very valid. She felt like, you know, I had kind of stepped back from the relationship. She wanted to spend more time with me. She felt like I was intentionally avoiding her or not wanting to spend time with her. And that was true. It was true. But at that point in time, once again, being Bella of 2012, I was like, I'm not your boyfriend. I'm not going to be going out of my way to be available to you. If you cannot take what I'm giving. And it was a thing of pride, to be honest. Like, sometimes when we look back, the interesting thing is that after this happened, for a long time, I kind of blocked it out of my mind. So she's still friends with a lot of my friends, and I'm still friends with her friends, kind of. And but we don't really interact. We follow each other on social media, but we're definitely not, I don't think we consider each other friends. And for a long time, I couldn't really remember what happened. So anytime people would ask, what happened? And stuff like that, because there are lots of people that knew us from the phase when it was just me and her and we were always together. And people would ask, I'll kind of just be like, you know, we're just young and stuff like that. But like, the more I've had time to sit with it, and the more I've interacted with had other situations play out, the more I understand what exactly happened. It was a situation where somebody wasn't happy with what I was giving them, and instead of listening to them, validating them, and coming to some kind of compromise, I was like, well, if you're not happy with it, there's nothing I can do about it. So naturally, that friendship was dissolved. It was not great to be in that situation. It was very sad. It was made a little easier by the fact that we were kind of going our separate ways physically. So at that point in time, she was going to a different city to do her master's. I was still in Nottingham and stuff. So we didn't really have to meet, but there was definitely always the air around, because we had mutual friends, of the fact that, you know, things could have gone better. And I almost just settled into it. And I feel like I can't imagine how she would have felt. Actually, I can, because trust me that karma is actually a bitch, and I've experienced my own share. Now, it's easy for me to share hers with her story and her name, because it's something that happened a long time ago, and I'm actively in the wrong in this situation. In some of the stories I'm going to share, it's not going to be as easy to be like, oh, this is the person's name and this is what happened. So bear that in mind, because I am trying my best to be sensitive. I've noticed that if I go based on how I feel and express myself fully, people have a tendency to get hurt. And I really don't want to keep doing that. That's not the me of 2022. I think it's rather selfish that because you want to air out your feelings and express yourself, you do that to the detriment of other people. It's almost not worth expressing yourself, if that makes sense. Cool. Now, my second scenario of a friendship breakup is one where there had been a lot of build-up in the relationship of annoyance and frustration on my end. I can't really speak for her, but for me, it was a thing where it started to be apparent to me that certain values that we had were not matching up, and I was aggravated by this person for a long period of time. They didn't do anything actively wrong to me, and which is why this one is still actively my fault. They didn't do anything particularly wrong to me. They were just annoying in like the ways that like you're just like, yeah, I don't want to be dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. It got to the point where we were like, I was almost in like a friendship group with this person. This was later on in life. I was in a friendship group with them, and I would almost start to avoid spending time with them. And I felt like I was also influenced by other people around me that found this person a bit aggravating as well. And as a result of that, when one thing happened, so basically at some point in time I had a mental break. I had like a really long anxiety episode, so it lasted for days, and I felt like the person didn't respond the way that I wanted them to. They're not the only one that didn't respond the way that I wanted them to, by the way, but it's almost like my mind saw this as an opportunity to kind of separate myself. They tried to have a conversation about it. I felt offended by the things that the person was saying, but I didn't say anything because at that point in time, I felt like I'd already made up my mind. I'm not really doing this anymore. So I didn't feel the need to respond with a dialogue. I just kind of listened and was nodding my head and being like, okay, cool, totally understand. But in the back of my mind, I kind of knew that it was over. And this, I feel, would have been so heartbreaking for the person. I know it would have been so heartbreaking for the person because they didn't try to reach out after that, but I feel like it was more a thing of pride than not actively wanting to reach out, if that makes sense. Like, it's a thing of you've aired your feelings to somebody, the person is not responding the way that you would expect, so what else is there to do? So she never really reached out after that, and I never really said anything to her after that as well, until maybe like 2 years later. Once again, I had indoctrinated her into like my friend group, so she was now friends with people I was friends with people I was really close to and stuff like that. So we weren't really actively seeing each other all the time, but at the same time we were still in each other's spaces, so that was also increasingly uncomfortable. For the most part, my primary feeling was feeling like this girl is really actively just trying to still be part of my life, and I found it laughable. And I'm just being honest with you, I found it laughable because I was just like, guy, I'm not interested. Like, I'm so much better without you. And it's not a lie. It wasn't a lie that I felt so much better and I felt like the air was lighter. And at the point in time when the friendship ended, I felt like I really needed space from this person. But I still feel like the situation was handled very badly. I feel like the situation was handled really irresponsibly. At that point in time, only one of my friends was able to speak to me about it and be honest with me, because there's also this energy that I give. I speak about things with so much confidence and so much passion, as you guys have probably noticed. So it's a bit difficult for people to reach out to me. And the whole concept of this strong personality thing that happens where people feel like when you have a strong personality, they can't talk to you because you've made up your mind, is definitely something that I have been a victim of. I definitely wish that there were certain times when other people had called me out and been like, guy, this thing is not cool, and been like, because this and this. But I understand that the people that were closest to me at that point in time, some of them were happy that she wasn't there, but the people that were still friends with her, I feel like it was not their responsibility, but at the same time I would have definitely benefited from somebody sitting me down and being like, listen, babe. Thankfully, I have friends like that now. I have friends like that do not hesitate, and they're different friends, to be honest. I have friends like that now that do not hesitate to call me out on my bullshit when they know that they'll be like, guy, this is messed up, like you can't do this, this is wrong, you are wrong in this situation. But at that point in time, I didn't have anybody like that, so it was almost like I was in anarchy. I was in anarchy because in a lot of my friendships, I was the stronger personality. I was the one that used to determine a lot of things. I'll be the one that people would come to their house. I'll be the one that I've always had the air of glue. I'm always the glue in a lot of relationships, and I realized that. So that was the second one. Now these last two ones have happened closer to real time. One of them in particular is one in which the heartbreak still feels fresh for the most part, and as much as I feel like I've gotten over it, every once in a while I see something that reminds me of this relationship, and I can't really go into detail on this particular one because it's just a thing of a relationship was, I've known this person for a long time, almost all my life, and we never really were close. In uni, we got close for a little while. I think I did something that offended her, so she kind of stepped back from the relationship. And then after some time, we realized that we were going through the same things in life. So we were preparing to get married at the same time and stuff like that. And we were planning to have very active roles in each other's weddings. But there was a misunderstanding that happened that made her feel as though she didn't really know me, which I think is quite valid because sometimes it takes certain misunderstandings to truly know somebody. But I felt like that was handled extremely unfairly. It almost reminded me of the Kenny situation where I have borne myself to you in a certain way and you're kind of telling me, yeah, this is just, it was a situation where we had a misunderstanding. I was trying to explain to her my thought process and why I reached that conclusion, and she was more interested in telling me she doesn't roll with people that do these kinds of things. She doesn't entertain these kinds of things. This is not how her and her friends interact. And I found that really, it was really disappointing because I saw so much potential in the relationship, and it's only spiraled from that point, from that argument. So we slightly moved past that though, but it felt like everything else I was being put to the test to see if I was really worth being friends with. And I've never had to jump through hoops to be in a relationship with anybody else, but I definitely felt that way. And that relationship meant so much to me. I don't know if it is because of how toxic that interaction is, the fact that you feel like you have to prove something to somebody. It just it was just an unfortunate situation because I felt like there was so much potential for us to have so much in common, and that potential was wasted. So during my wedding period in time, there were a lot of things that she did that were disappointing to me, including not speaking to me during my wedding at all, even though she was present for the wedding, like avoiding me entirely. It turned into a whole thing where we had to be like sat down and had a conversation. And by the time I explained to her what actually happened, it was so different from what she felt, but she already was on such a defensive high that she didn't really listen to anything I had to say. So there was no really, and there has not ever really been an apology that I deemed viable for the relationship to be resurrected. It still hurts because I see this person quite a lot. We have causes to interact with each other relatively frequently. So every time I see something that reminds me of them, I don't feel great. That's the truth. Some days I don't care. Some days I'm irritated. Sometimes when this person's name is mentioned, I'm literally like, listen, I don't want to hear anything about this individual. Please miss me with it. So yeah, that one is still like, you know, a wound that you have and it heals, but you keep on picking at it. So it never really heals properly. Kind of like this one. But I didn't really pick at this one much. But like, it scabs over and then you open it again, it bleeds again, it scabs over. That's pretty much what that is. And then the biggest and I think the most profound relationship breakup that I've ever had is with somebody that I considered my best friend for my the entirety of my life almost. And this one, I'm speaking about it because there was a point in time I did this anonymous thing, and I'm not sure who asked about it, and to be honest, it doesn't really matter who asked about it, but they asked about her by name because they had noticed that I wasn't posting anything concerning her. I'm sure she wasn't posting anything concerning me, and vice versa. And this particular breakup with this person that used to be my best friend, is a bit more complicated than these other ones. I feel like these other ones, to a certain level, they're kind of cut and dry. This one, on the other hand, is a situation where a friendship devolved based on different levels of growth, based on not really aligning on the paths that we're currently going in life. It was an accumulation of problems over the years that had been resolved improperly. So, you have a conversation, people apologize, but you haven't really accepted the apology. And I feel like it was obvious when our friendships were transitioning, we were not friends with the same kinds of people. Like, we're not currently friends with the same kind of people. In fact, there's such a disparity in the type of person that we're friends with that for a long time, a lot of people wondered how we were friends. And we used to take a lot of pride in the fact that it was like we were so different, but like we made it work. But in reality, it seems as though we never really made it work. It was more a thing of her probably accepting a lot of parts of my personality that she did not need to, me accepting certain things that she would do that don't align with me that I did not need to either, and us just trying to make it work. So it was very much like a relationship, like a romantic relationship. And at the point in time, it felt like there was already a decline. The decline had already started happening by like 2019, 2020. There was already an active decline going on, but there was really a fight, I think, within both of ourselves to try and hold on as much as possible to what we felt was of value in the relationship. But by the time my wedding came, there were so many expectations I had that were not met, and I think vice versa. There were expectations that she had that were not met. By the time the wedding season was over, it was pretty obvious and apparent to both of us that it wasn't really working. Now, I'm going to get to one of the questions. One of the questions says, how do you deal with friendship breakups for people that you feel are going to be in your life forever? Yeah, closure or keep it moving. So, I am an honest believer in, and the first time I really thought about this thing actively is when I used to talk to my friend Demi about certain scenarios like this. And what she used to tell me is that in certain relationships, it is easier and healthier to let things die a natural death. So, in a scenario where you see that things are not going well, I'll get to the question, but in a scenario where you see that things are not going well, I prefer the approach of letting things just tether off naturally, so that if they tether off naturally, they can also have the possibility of reconnecting naturally. There are no permanent friends, there are no permanent enemies. Your friend can be your friend for a certain point in time and not at a certain phase in your life, and still come back and meet you at a different phase in your life. So I don't believe in a thing of it's over, lock off, bye-bye. I do, however, feel like it's important the way you leave a relationship. And the way you leave a relationship determines how easy it is to reconnect in that relationship. So in this scenario, she sent me a message, a very long message that outlined things that had been going on for years. Now, like I said, we've been friends like all our lives. So envision getting a message that outlines all the things you've done wrong from almost the beginning of your life to now, knowing full well that at the point in time when you're receiving this message, you're not even the person, that you've gone through so many phases in between that you can't even recognize some of the things that were going on. Now, it can be looked at from my perspective of like, I can't keep apologizing for who I am not anymore. But it can also be looked at from the perspective of someone who is tired and just feels like, before I leave this situation, let me get everything out there. And I honestly feel like I feel like she felt like, you know, the way things are going now, she has been holding so much in for so many years. It makes sense for her to just pour it all out. And I respected that. The truth of the matter is that I had my own personal things that I was holding on to naturally. I think in relationships like this, it's always a two-way street. But I had already made peace with so many things, and I didn't feel the need to bear it all out in that way. So what I did instead is acknowledge what she had said, validate it, and just tell her that I want nothing but the best for her, and left it at that. And we kind of went our separate ways. Now, does this mean that if I see her somewhere, I'll be angry with her? No, because I'm not actively angry. I do understand that relationships have situations like this where things are just not working, and I've seen people step away from each other and go back together. And until I know whether or not that's going to happen, I'm not about to be putting nails inside coffins. I don't think it's necessary. Now, as far as getting over a friendship breakup that does not happen in this way, where both of you are kind of like, yeah, this is not working, is one person, like the 3 other stories I've told, is one person that goes ahead and doesn't fight for the relationship, and you end up being on the victim side of it. The truth of the matter is that you can only receive closure from somebody that is willing to give closure. Bella of Uni 2012 and Bella of the second story, actually Bella of the second story, okay, Bella of 2012, I don't think that I would have given closure. I feel like I would have been trying to still feel very high and mighty about it. And that's why a lot of things that happen in relationships are really based on maturity and emotional intelligence. At that point in time, for me, it would be a thing of wanting to come out on top, wanting to prove to the person or to you that I don't care as much about you as you care about me, since you've put me in this awkward situation. So getting closure, trying to get closure from somebody who is not even willing, is a very difficult thing, and I think it sets you up for your own downfall, to be honest. Like, there are certain people that you cannot get closure from. So as a general rule of thumb, I feel like if you can if you can move on without closure, you should. However, if you are open to, you can have a conversation with the desire to understand, but go in with the bare minimum expectations. And that is what I've experienced in the third story that I was telling about the person I've also known all my life, is that by the time we had this conversation and this sit down, I really just wanted to know what I had done to her that was so bad that she felt like this is how I needed to be treated. So for me, that was supposed to be an act of closure. And it was beneficial to me for a while, hearing this and understanding that this person actually got it wrong. They don't actually know what actually happened. And now that I've told them, I'm hoping that they're thinking about it and they'll do something about it. But the mistake that I made was thinking that just because I got that validation, all of a sudden things were going to go back on track. You have to be willing to accept closure, knowing that that is still the end of the relationship, and that is really tough. So that's my thing. I'm all for closure. If you look at the person and see that the person is somebody that you can have a decent conversation with, you can have a respectful conversation with, that will not frustrate you more than you're already frustrated by the situation. On the other hand, if the way that the friendship is ending and the beef, you've already seen that this person is not emotionally mature, and you've given it some time and attempted to have a conversation and the person is still proving to be a dunce, please just move on. Because the more you attack that situation, the more aggressive the person will get, and the more whatever it is that you have left, whatever good memories you have left of that relationship, the more you will let go of them. And the most that you can do, at least, it would be nice to hold on to what you benefited from the friendship, at least. So that's my thing, and that's why I handled the breakup with a long-term best friend the way that I did. I did not want to start a back and forth. I wanted it to be a thing of, you have feelings, I have feelings, I have people here that are dealing with my feelings and walking me through my feelings. You want to talk to me about your feelings, I will validate them, and we can live with some semblance of respect for each other. Because once you start doing that back and forth, you just start to rate each other less and less. And the problem with having arguments or having situations like this is that it makes you strip your relationship. You strip your relationship to the bare minimum, because a lot of people don't know how to argue with respect. A lot of people don't know how to be upset with respect. By the time somebody is upset with you, they start to see you as a worm, as compared to still being able to call upon the positive things that have happened and realize that an argument is an argument. They're not arguing with you particularly, they're arguing with the situation that has played out, and it should not really affect your relationship. I know that this is possible and viable because I have had arguments with almost all my friends, if not all my friends, and been able to come out of it knowing and letting them know that I still love and care about them. I'm just not happy about that situation, and vice versa. So it's definitely a doable thing. If you're with people that cannot do that, you don't need to put in too much effort. Now, this brings us to is friendship breakup. Are friendship breakups as bad as people say? Friendship breakups are terrible. Friendship breakups are terrible because you go into a friendship thinking you can be your most vulnerable self. With a lot of relationships, people don't go in wanting to be vulnerable. They go in wanting to play certain games. They go in with a timeline in mind. With a friendship, friendships tend to be presented to you as something that should last forever. They're supposed to be lifelong interactions, especially same-sex friendships, because you feel like you're going through similar things. This is somebody that understands you in a way that like your partner can never understand you, because there are no barriers of like, it's platonic. There's no romantic tension, there's no sexual tension, and that leaves space for things to be so clear. So when a relationship that you have committed to forever, and you don't know that you've actually committed to more than your romantic relationships, because it's like some people are not aware that the commitment to a friendship is deeper than the commitment to boyfriend and girlfriend and all these other random things that can end however they end. Most people go into relationships, you want something out of it, but at the same time, you're just seeing how it goes. With friendships, people are not really seeing how they go. You're going in thinking, this is my guy. Like, oh my God, we have such a good time together. We're probably going to be together forever. We'll have our children together. I start planning, I should be planning bridesmaids, dresses, and all that. There's so much more of an investment. And to have that be cut off is extremely painful. I feel like it is probably the most painful pain that a lot of people might feel in their lifetime. Like, you might have people break up with you, and you might break up with other people, like in romantic relationships, and be like, you know what, it's fine, another one. But friendships are not as easily replaced as romantic relationships. Romantic relationships have a rubric to them. Friendships do not have a rubric, in that you kind of accept everything and you absorb everything about that person, and all of a sudden the person is no longer there. So it is way more heartbreaking, in my opinion. I don't know how people survive friendship breakups. I feel like, man, like I said, out of the 3 stories that I've said to you guys, or I've told to you guys today, is the third one that still really bothers me, and that's how I know how painful it was for me. The first 2, obviously, I was to blame. So for me, it's always easier to accept situations where you're to blame because you're the one that messed up. But in a situation where you've been wronged, is a bit more difficult because you feel the desire for vindication. You want everybody to know that you were wronged. You want the person to come back begging and pleading and wanting to make things right. And that just doesn't always happen. I will say that with time, the burn of that relationship ending the way it did is getting less and less painful. Does it mean that all of a sudden I'm over it, and now if she just comes over and says, how are you now, let's hang out, I'll be like, oh yeah, sure? No, it will not be like that. Even till now, there have been certain points in time, maybe when I've been sick and she has reached out, that I can't bring myself to respond because I'm still hurt. I don't see the value any longer in having interactions when I know that it's not going the way that I want it to go. Which brings me to another conversation that we're going to have about what people expect from friendships, and the fact that certain people are more than happy with a simple friendship and other people love the complex and complicated and ingrained and nitty-gritty relationship. But the last one that I'm going to answer is, how do you deal with a friend that doesn't see her wrong, just yours? There's so many different ways to speak to people. It's not the same way that you interact and attack every single situation. I think it's important to know the person that you're dealing with. If you're with somebody that always feels like they're right and never wrong, and that you're always the one that is wrong, it might be beneficial to take on a different tactic. Instead of telling them what they did wrong, give them scenarios of how things happen, because people learn very differently. I don't think this alone is a reason to end a relationship or a friendship, not a relationship. A friendly relationship, like a friendship. I'm going to say friendly relationship so much, but anyway, I don't know that it's enough reason to just be like, yeah, this person is not teachable. I feel like a lot of people that do that, they have like a weird defense mechanism where they feel like they're insecure about a lot of things and they feel very strongly about certain things. And unless you get them to see things from a different perspective, it won't work. Because, like I said, I have been in that position before where, because of the way that I speak so confidently that it constantly feels like I'm right, you're wrong, shut up. But I think what would have been beneficial for me at that point in time is for people to play out different scenarios. Yes, you're not handing a baby. Yes, you don't have to commit so much into a relationship. But if a relationship means that much to you, you're going to make that commitment either way. People feel like, oh yeah, I don't want to give so much into a friendship. Trust me, friendship means a lot to you. You will give, and sometimes you might not even notice that that's what you're doing. So this time that you have the opportunity to be intentional about it, why not? I would say you should try to paint scenarios that don't make the person feel like you are saying they are actively wrong. It doesn't always have to be a thing of I'm right and you're wrong. You could try letting them know how you feel about a situation. So it's not really about you're wrong, like you did this and it was wrong. It's more like, this is how this thing that you did made me feel. And then start the conversation from there. There'll be people that'll still push back. I've interacted with friends and family that I will express myself to, and they will push back and be like, it's not that serious type situation. And then at that point, you have to understand that these people are not as emotionally intelligent as you are, and you're going to have to accept that. If you are now the person that wants to keep on going in that situation, go ahead. I have found that in situations where I have expressed myself or borne my soul when somebody has offended me and they don't respond the way that I expect or the way that I appreciate, or in a bracket, like in a boundary, I will know better than to put those kind of emotional feelings, those kind of feelings in the hands of that person. It will be more a thing of, okay, you understood now that your relationship is restricted to certain things. Once again, simple relationship versus complex relationship. It's not everybody that you have to express your heart and your soul to be your friend. Some people are just there for particular reasons, and if they cannot handle the emotion, they don't have the emotional intelligence to deal with the fact that they could be not wrong, or they could be wrong by offending you, simply by offending you, whether or not it looks black and white and it doesn't seem wrong on a normal day. By offending you, it makes it wrong. If they cannot accept that, you cannot be putting your emotions into the hands of somebody that will gaslight you and make you feel like you are being dramatic because you're upset about something. It is just not worth it. period. My sister has told me this before. I'm in a situation like this very similarly, where I was upset by something that was said to me, and I reached out to the person that said this and said, you know, this is how this made me feel. And I was pretty much gaslit. It was a thing of, it's not that serious. I feel like you're just taking it too deep. You're just this. And because of that, I've had to adjust to the fact that when it comes to situations like this, I can't talk to this person about this because they will not get it. I can't talk to them or interact with them concerning these situations because it's beyond their skill set. And I'm just going to have to accept that and take those feelings and emotions to somebody else that can get it and that can manage your emotions. It's not every friendship that is built to manage your emotions, and you have to accept that, because not every friendship that you two can manage their emotions, period. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. They're just waiting for me. I need to get something for this my eye. But before I leave, do not forget that you are sugar, you are spice, and you are bomb ass jello fresh. Mwah.